Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Ajay from Networkers Home Technical Team, and today we are going to see about Ansible for network automation for beginners. Okay, so we are going to do network automation with the help of Ansible, and we are going to see it from the beginner's perspective. Okay, as a beginner, how you can start learning and the basics of Ansible. Okay, so if we talk about Ansible for network automation for beginners, so first thing you need to understand is about what is network automation. Okay, what do you understand with network automation, right? So if we talk about network automation, so network automation is going to use softwares to manage the network devices. Okay, so that means we are managing the network devices from a centralized place rather than doing manual configuration of the devices, like going to each and every device and doing the configuration. We are using automation. Okay, so what and automation helps us with? Automation reduces the manual configuration and it is going to speed up our deployments. Okay, and it also improves consistency, minimizing the human errors, and also increases the agility of the process. Okay, so a brief introduction about network automation in a simple term. If I want to say what is network automation, so I would say that network automation is a way of automating your network configurations and your deployment, or you can say configuration, deployment, or management, right? Now, what is the problem with the manual network management? So if we talk about what are the challenges in the manual network management, so first of all, it is time consuming. Okay, the configurations take time, right? Like, you have hundreds of devices, you want to do the configuration. So manually going to each and every device and doing the configuration is a lot of time taking task, right? And there is high risk of human errors. Might be possible we will make some error. Sometimes we might configure a device with the wrong configuration, or sometimes we might skip a device if lots of devices are there. Okay, so there are multiple chances of making errors, right? And the consistency across the devices can be, like there can be inconsistency in the configuration between the devices, that we might miss a part of the configuration. Okay, that is also possible, right? So these are some of the challenges that we face in doing the configuration manually in the devices, or managing the network manually. Okay, so now let's have an introduction to Ansible, that what is Ansible. Okay, so if we talk about Ansible is an open source automation tool, and with the help of Ansible we can automate your IT tasks like configuration management, application deployment. These kind of tasks we can go and automate, right? So that is what Ansible, which is an open source tool, right? And the best part about Ansible is what it doesn't require any sort of agent to be installed in the devices. It has an agentless architecture. Okay, so we'll be talking about the architecture also. So if we talk about how the Ansible is working, okay, how the Ansible is working. So first of all, in a controller machine, Ansible will be installed. Okay, and once Ansible is installed on a controller machine, then we are going to use playbooks to define what are the tasks we want to automate. So whatever the tasks you want to automate, you can create a playbook. Inside the playbook we can define the task, and those tasks will be executed on the devices, which we call as a managed node. So Ansible will take access of the nodes with the help of SSH, right? So that playbooks will be executed on the managed devices with the help of SSH connection, right? Now, if we talk about your Ansible architecture, that what is the architecture of Ansible? Okay, so in Ansible, like I said, there is an agentless architecture, right? So we will have a controller directly, and we will have the managed nodes, the nodes that you're going to manage. So controller, this is a centralized machine where your Ansible software is going to run, and from where you're going to send all the tasks and configurations to the devices. While if we talk about the managed nodes, so managed nodes, these are the remote devices that you're willing to manage. Okay, so it will use the centralized control system, the controller, and the devices which will be managed with the help of Ansible, they will be known as the managed nodes, right? Okay, then in Ansible we talk about like we will have the playbook. So also we will have an inventory, right? So what is an inventory in Ansible? If we talk about an inventory, so inventory is going to define the host and group of hosts. That means where the tasks will be executed. Inside the playbook, we define what are the tasks to be performed, right? But inside an inventory, we define where the task will be performed, the devices, right? So we will define all the host and the group of hosts. Okay, so this is going to specify the Ansible, the networks that your Ansible is going to manage. Okay, that is the inventory. So that is going to be the place where we will define what all the nodes we are trying to manage with the help of Ansible. Okay, then next thing we have the hosts and groups. So inside the you can say like inside the inventory file, we will mention about the hosts and the group. So we can mention individual hosts also. So like here on my screen, if you see here, I have the router, like router 1, then I have router 2. So what is this? These are the hosts. These are the hosts. And when I use this kind of square brackets, so I'm making a group. So this is a group. So group is going to define the section for the host categories. Okay. So this is going to define like, okay, what is the category of the devices? I can have a category of devices, like I can have routers, I can have switches, I can have, devices from a particular branch. Okay. So those kind of things, or a particular department can be there. And then hosts. So here we are going to list individual hosts also. Okay. Inside the groups, we are going to add the hosts. So we can define individual hosts as well as groups as well. Okay, so groups are helping us to deploy the same set of configuration across multiple devices. Okay. Then what about Ansible modules? So in Ansible, we have some pre-built components. Okay, if we talk about a module is a small program, okay, which is a pre-built, you can say, component for network automation. So like if we discuss about, Cisco's network automation, so we have like modules like, iOS config module we have. Other than iOS config, we have NXOS. So for normal, like a Cisco router, if you are using Nexus kind of OSs, in that case, you have to use the NXOS, but normally we will go with the iOS config. Okay. So these are the modules, and there are certain other modules also available. It's not like, Ansible can be used only to manage your Cisco routers or switches only. You can manage multiple vendors. Okay. And also you can manage Windows systems, Linux systems, or servers with the help of Ansible. Okay. Then if we talk about writing a playbook, okay, so what is a playbook? So playbook is a YAML file, okay, that is going to define what are the tasks to be executed on the managed node. So earlier we talked about how Ansible works, where we saw that, okay, the controller is going to be there, the managed node is going to be there, which is going to use the playbooks to define what all the tasks are to be executed on the managed nodes, right? So where the playbook is going to run. So inside the playbooks, we are going to contain a series of play. A play is basically, like what we are trying to achieve. Like let's say, for example, a play I can have with the name of a general config, right? So inside a playbook, there will be a number of plays, and each play is going to map to, different hosts, and tasks are going to be defined there. Okay, so you can start with creating a simple playbook, okay, that is going to do a very basic task like, creating an interface, or enabling an interface, or disabling an interface. Okay, these kind of simple tasks we can use. And as a beginner also, you can learn from these things like, how to enable an interface, how to disable an interface, how to add a banner, how to remove a banner, right? These kind of things we can use, right? Okay, so later in the video, I'll show you how to create a playbook, or how you can write your own playbook as well. Okay, so I'll show you a sample playbook where I'll explain how the things are there step by step, right? Okay, then inside a playbook, if you see the architecture, you have the name of the play, then you can define your host, that okay, where the task will be executed, so that you can define. And then we will start defining all the tasks, that okay, what all the tasks you want to perform, and what are the modules you are willing to use there. Okay, then structure of an Ansible playbook. So your Ansible playbook is written in the YAML language, and it contains a series of tasks, and the tasks will be executed in order only, like one by one. And the YAML playbook or Ansible playbook is going to define the operations that your Ansible is going to perform on the managed nodes. Okay, so playbook you can consider like this is kind of a script only that will be executed, or that will be run on the target devices or the managed devices. Okay, then if we talk about working with the roles, so inside Ansible we have roles, and the roles are going to help you to organize and modularize your automation tasks by breaking them into reusable components. Like let's talk about variables. Now variables is something that once we will create, and then we will reuse them throughout the script, okay, or throughout the you can say playbook we can use. So a role you can, inside a role you can include different tasks, variable, templates, and some other resources as well. Okay. So these are the things that can be included inside a role. So later on when we'll do the practical, we are going to understand it, okay, how the things are working. Then if we talk about using the variable, so variables store values, right? So variables in Ansible will allow you to store and manage different values that you can reuse throughout the playbook. Okay. And variables you can define if you want within a playbook also, you can define them, or in a separate variable file also we can define them. We generally define them in a playbook, or you define them in a inventory also you can define. Okay. So I'll show you practically how to do that. Then if we talk about automating the Cisco device configuration, so like I said, you can start with basic things like adding login banners, removing login banners, then enabling an interface, disabling an interface. These kind of things you can try to do. Okay. So now let me show you how you can create a playbook, and let's do a small automation task also, okay, with the help of Ansible. So as a controller node, what I'll be using, as a controller node, I'll be using CentOS machine. So here I have my CentOS machine. Let me log into this machine. So this is my CentOS machine that I'll be using as a controller. And as a managed node, I'm going to use here 2 Cisco routers. Okay. And for deploying the Cisco routers, I'm using here EVNG. So let me show you. So here you can see my sample lab here that I have Ansible controller. So this is my base machine, that CentOS machine that I'm using right now. And these are the 2 routers that I'm going to manage with the help of Ansible, right? So let's go and start these nodes. Okay. So while these nodes are getting started, let me tell you about the configuration I'm going to do here. Okay, so first thing I'll do here is what? I'll enable SSH here on both of these nodes. Okay, I'm going to enable here SSH. And after enabling SSH, what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure the username as admin. Okay, the username I'm going to configure here as admin. The password for the admin user that I'm going to keep here will be, let's say, Cisco. Okay, and it is going to run on the port number 22. Okay, and then other thing I'll do is I'll set the host name on the devices. So this is the thing that I'm going to do here. Okay, so the SSH username and password to these devices I'll configure is the admin at Cisco. Okay, so let's take access of these devices. Okay, so I'm going to take access of R1 here. This is R1. And then I'm going to use R2 here. This is R2. Okay. So I have both R1 and R2 here. Now, once these devices will come up, we'll start with the SSH configuration, then we'll start with Ansible configuration. So meanwhile, the devices are coming up. Let's go and open a new terminal. Okay. So I'll open a new window here, and here I'll check Ansible -- version. Okay, so I can see Ansible is installed. Ansible version is 2.9.27. Okay. Then clear it out. Okay. So meanwhile, the devices are coming up. Let's go to the Ansible configuration file. So I can use any of the text editor. You must have, basic Linux knowledge as a beginner if you want to start with the Ansible network automation, right? So I'm going to use here the Vim network editor, and I'm going to open the Ansible configuration file, which is present in /etc/Ansible, and the name of the file is ansible.cfg. Okay, and in this one, this is the configuration file. So I'll scroll down to this file, And here, if I scroll down, I'll see this thing here, right? I'll see a line that uncomment this to disable SSH key host checking. So I don't want to right now, copy any of the keys and all. So what I'll do, I'll just uncomment this and just that. Then I'll save this configuration file. Enter. This is done. Okay. Next thing what we are going to do is we are going to do the configuration. So I'll say enable configuration terminal. So first let me change the host name of the device. So I'll set the device host name to R1. Okay. Then on the interface gig 0/0, as I can see this interface here, right? This is Z0/0 on both the devices, right? Okay. So I'll say interface gig 0/0. I'll say IP address. So if you want, you can take the IP address from DHCP or you can configure static IPs as well. So let me configure static IP. Let's say 192.168.128.129. Okay, then 255.255.255.0. Then I will say no shutdown. Okay, this is done. Now, next thing I need to configure here is the SSH. So for the SSH, I'll say domain name. So IP domain name, let's say cisco.com. Okay. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say crypto key generate RSA modulus 1024. So the SSH keys will be generated. Okay. Then I'll configure the username admin. Privilege of the user will be 15 and password that I'm going to configure is Cisco. Okay, this is done. Then I'll say line VTY 024, use the local database for authentication and transport input SSH. So I'm not allowing telnet here, I'm just allowing SSH as of now. So this is R1 configuration done. Then I'm going to go and configure, okay, enable configuration terminal, hostname as R2. Then I'm going to say interface gig 0/0, IP address 192.168.128.130, 255.255.255.0, no shutdown. Then here also I'm going to enable SSH. So IP domain name cisco.com. Then I'll say crypto key generate RSA modulus 1024. Then I'll say username admin, privilege is 15, password is Cisco. Then I'll say line VTY 024, login local, transport input SSH. This is done. Now first let me test the connectivity. So if I test the connectivity, if I say ping 192.168.128.129, so I'm having the communication. And if I check 130, this communication is also fine. Then let me check SSH also. SSH admin at 192.168.128.129. So password it is asking. So password is like a Cisco. So you can see I have access to R1. That is fine. Okay, and then same thing if I test for 130. Password is Cisco. R2 access also I have. Okay, so far everything is good here. Now next thing what we'll do is we are going to define, we are going to define what the host and groups in our inventory file, right? So let's go to the inventory file. So I'll say vim/etc/ansible, and here we have a host file. So in that file, we are going to define our groups and hosts. right? So if you see this file, here an example is given that if you want, you can define ungroup host, as well as we can create a group of hosts also. Okay, so let's define here. So if I want, I can individually define, let's say for example, I can say that, okay, insert node 192.168.128.129 is my first node, 192.168.128.130 is my second node, right? And if I want, like, okay, there is some configuration that I need to apply on both of them, so I can create a group also with the name, let's say for example, routers. Okay, and here I can define, okay, here I can define the variables or my group, like what are the hosts are there in this particular group. So let's say 129 is there, and 192.168.128.130 is there. Okay, so right now I will be showing you the configuration that will be working on both of them simultaneously. Okay, so let's go and comment this as of now. And let's say if there are any variables you want to set for this, let's say they have the same username, same password, right? So those kind of things if you want to define. So how you will define the variables? Let's say this is my group routers, and inside the routers I want to define what? Variables. Okay, so what kind of variables you want to define? So let's say first of all I want to define the username, so I'll say Ansible_user, and the username I have configured is what? Admin. And then we will configure password, so Ansible_password, and the password that I have given is about Cisco. And then what kind of connection you want to make, so we will make the connection with the network CLI, right? So I'll say Ansible_connection, and the connection is about network_CL, right? Then what is the operating system we are making connection with? So it's Cisco IOS, right? So we'll say that Ansible_network_OS is, the network OS is what? iOS. And what is the port number Ansible is going to connect to? So I can say Ansible_port, so port number 22. If it is a different port also, you can mention the different port here, right? Once this is done, we can save this file. Okay, once this file is saved, now it's time to test it. So let's use Ansible. Normally we use the ping command, right? But how do you ping with the help of Ansible to test the connectivity, right? So if I say that Ansible, and I want to perform the task on the routers group, okay, and which module you want to use? So I want to use the module as ping. So what it will do, it will ping the routers. So let's see whether it's working or not. And you see, I have a success ping. Here the status you can see, success. Okay, so it was a successful ping with 130 also. It was a successful ping with 129 as well, right? So both the routers we were able to ping successfully. Now let's try to gain the configuration. Let's try to run a command that is going to show us the configuration, right? So let's say we want to check the IP address configuration on the devices, that okay, what is the IP address configuration right now? So if you want to use that, you will say Ansible routers. Okay, so on the routers group we want to do it. Then again module. So which module you want to use? So module I want to use is the iOS command module. This is the module I want to use. Then -a, that means what is the command you are going to execute. So the command that I'm willing to execute. So you can mention here like the commands I want to execute, and the command that you want to execute is what? It is, let's say, show IP interface brief. Okay, so this is the command that I want to execute. Then hit enter. So if successful, if SSH access was successful with the help of Ansible, then we will get the output. So you can see for 129 we got the success, and you can see here gig 0/0 is having the IP address 129. Same thing we were able to see for the 130 also. So with the help of Ansible, I was able to centrally sit in a place, and I was able to get the configuration. I was able to check the configuration of the devices. Okay, now next thing we are willing to do is what? We are willing to do some configuration. Let's say we are willing to change some configuration. So if you want to change the configuration, like I said, whatever the task you want to execute, so for those tasks, what you can do, you can create a playbook. Now let me show you a sample playbook that we are going to use here. Okay, so if I say that, okay, Alice / so I have a sample playbook here. Okay, so my playbook is written in YAML language, that's why the extension is .yml here. Okay, so let me show you this playbook. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say same vim we can use, vim / general config.yml. Okay, so now take a look here. So here the name is what? General config. So this is my play name. This is a playbook, right? Inside a playbook you define a play. So my play is what? General config. I want to do the general config. Then which host, on which host this playbook will run? This playbook will run on the routers. Now what are the tasks you want to perform inside, like using this playbook? What are the tasks you want to perform? So let's say you want to add a banner, you want to add a login banner, and let's say here as of now this is saying that Nicholas Cage is the Tiger King. Okay, so either you can say something like whatever is required, like, you know, for example, I can say something like authorized access only. Then I can say something like unauthorized access is prohibited. Okay, let's say this is the login banner I want to show. Whenever a user is login, this is the banner I want to show. Okay, and the state right now, it says absent. Let me say this state is what? Present. Same thing, the loopback I want to add, so I will mention the state as present. Okay, then I'm willing to create a loopback here, loopback 21. Okay, so for adding the login banner or managing the login banner, I'm using the module as iOS banner, and for managing the interface, I'm using the iOS interface module. Okay, so this is a simple way of writing a playbook. Now further we can keep on adding tasks, then, you know, moreover you can use Jinja to filters. Okay, if you want to do different kinds of configuration in the different devices. Okay, so that will be the higher end part, but as a beginner we can start with these kind of tasks like adding banner, removing banner, then, you know, adding interface, removing interface. Okay, these kind of things. So let's say this is my sample configuration. I'll say escape, colon, right and quit, enter, and let me do one thing. I'll move this or I can directly go to / and I can say Ansible, okay, dash playbook. Okay, and before before using this playbook, before running this playbook, let me show you something, that what is the login banner right now. Okay, so if I show you the login banner right now, and, you know, let's say SSH admin at 192.168.128.129. Okay, so let me show you the login banner here. Password is Cisco. So this is the login banner. You can see iOS is strictly limited and all. Okay, so right now this is the login banner. Now let's go and run the playbook. So I'll say Ansible dash playbook, and what is the playbook I want to run? General config.yml, right? This is the playbook I'm willing to run here. Hit enter, and this playbook is going to run. You see playbook, my play is general config, task is gathering the facts. Okay, the task is gathering the facts, and you see it was running over 128.129 and 128.130. Okay, so adding a loopback, adding banner was changed, and adding loopback was also changed, and you see it changed to the configuration, right? And on the routers also you can see a log here that, you know, the configured from the console by admin on the VTY 0, okay, through this IP address. So this is the IP of CentOS machine from where the configuration was changed. Okay, now if we go and check the login banner right now, okay, so now if I try to log in using SSH, and if I try Cisco, so you can already see the login banner here, that authorized users only, unauthorized access is prohibited. Okay, this thing. And if you check show IP interface brief, Okay, so we can see the IP address was there and your loopback 21 also created here. Okay, now what if I try to run the same playbook? Already I have run the playbook. I try to run the same playbook again. So if I run the same playbook again, what is going to happen? You will see that it will say nothing changed. Okay, so see here, place general config, gathering facts. Only it says okay, it's not saying changed, because it knows that already the configuration is same only. Okay, it has not been changed. Now let's say I'll modify this. Okay, let's say I'll say vim and general config.yml, and let's try to remove this configuration. Okay, so the state I will change to absent. Okay, I'll say the state is what? Absent. So that's this time the configuration will be removed. Okay, skip, colon, byte and quit, enter. And now let's run the playbook again. So this time you will see that configuration will change. General config, gathering facts. Okay. So connection is established, adding banner. So it has changed the configuration, you see here. And adding loopback was also done. Although I could change the name to remove loopback and remove the banner, but the configuration has been changed. Okay, so now if I go and check, right, SSH, and let's use the command admin at this particular IP, and if I give the password, so first thing, you do not see any login banner this time. Okay, there is no login banner here. Okay, then exit from here, and if I try to see, okay, let me take an access and I'll try to show you the loopback. So we have removed the loopback. Show IP interface brief. So you see there is no loopback here. This time loopback 21 do not exist here. Okay, all right. So this way we can use playbooks to manage, add some configuration, remove some configuration, check the configuration. Okay, so this was a small practical that I showed you for the Ansible network automation. Okay, so this way we can automate the Cisco device configurations, and then also you can troubleshoot. In Ansible we have the check mode, and you can review the logs also for error messages and the failed tasks. Okay, then if we talk about the best practices for network automation, so first of all, you should always use version control. That means it's not like same configuration file, or the same, you can say, playbook you keep on running and changing, right? You should always keep version control. So version control will help you, let's say if your current configuration is not working, so at least you can roll back to the previous configuration. That option you have. Okay, then you can implement error handling, that if there is an error in the script, so instead of crashing, the script can just skip that part and go to the next part. Okay, then you can schedule regular backups, and you can maintain documentation for the network automation, whatever you have performed, whatever the changes you have made. Okay, so this way you can use Ansible for network automation. This was a brief and very small introduction how you can use Ansible for network automation. Okay, Ansible is far more vast and in-depth. Okay, so if you want to learn more about Ansible and how you can use Ansible for network automation, make sure you drop it in the comment and like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.